Assalamu alaikum everyone, Brother Daba here. So today I'm gonna continue to the second part of refuting the rest of genetically modified skeptics video on arguments for God's existence. First of all, I'd like to make one thing clear. In the previous video, I was refuting the Pascal wager that he attempted to refute. I didn't really even need to do that because Pascal wager is not really an argument for God's existence. It is more of making it more rational to believe in God. I'll be leaving the link to the previous video in the description so you guys can watch it. Let's get into it.
Believers, the moral argument or argument from morality. There are several forms of this argument, but a common syllogistic form nowadays is this. If God does not exist, objective moral values don't exist. Objective moral values exist, therefore God exists. This argument's first premise is unsubstantiated. It doesn't demonstrate that the only way objective moral values can exist is if God exists. This is simply a non sequitur. Some who use this argument may define objective moral values as moral values declared by God, but that would make the argument state its conclusion within its second premise. That would commit the fallacy of begging the question. The argument would be circular.
Okay, so he's back at it again with his weird and irrational refutations and just calling out fallacies where they don't even exist. So, first of all, he said that the first premise doesn't prove itself. Premises don't generally prove themselves. They don't. There are other arguments put into with the premises to prove them. So it's not even a real refutation for that claim. Premises are generally backed up by other arguments and trying to prove them. This is common with all arguments for God, such as Kalam argument. But the main point really is that he doesn't understand that for some reason. That is why I would like him to be more skeptic and look into the arguments in depth. Or he's just lying or being dishonest or giving half truths to his audience, which is not really a good thing to do, I would say, objectively. So the first premise proves itself to be true by the fact that objective moral values can only exist by a being that has the nature of God, such as all powerful, all knowing, all wise, all just. Because if the being is all that, only then can it tell us that something is objectively good, or if it was not of that nature, then he could not objectively tell us if that moral view is good. Because, for example, if he was unjust, then the moral view that he has given us could be subjective to his injustice or his lack of justice, so it could still be morally wrong. Or that being that we're calling God, or which we are getting our moral values from, has to be all knowing from necessity, because if that being or that source of objective values is not all knowing, then we will never know if something is objectively good or bad. It is still subjective. He doesn't know everything, so he could not tell us if something is objectively wrong because he lacks knowledge. If he did have all knowledge, it could be the case that thing that he decided was good, or it could be the case that what he decided was bad. So necessarily that being has to be all knowing.
Second, evolution by natural selection is actually a pretty good explanation for why social species would behave according to practices which promote fairness.
Okay, you see, that's kind of the point. Evolution by natural selection does not objectively prove something to be right. That would be an appeal to nature fallacy, because you're saying that it is, I believe you're saying that if it is natural, it is objectively wrong. Well, you see, the appeal to nature fallacy is kind of a two-edged sword. For example, if I say that it is natural to believe in God, it doesn't necessarily mean that God exists. Same way, if you say that it is natural for this moral set of views to be true, doesn't mean that it is true. It just means it is natural. So that is a fallacy from nature, which he, I believe, is trying to commit by saying that evolution gives the reason for our moral values. And also, evolution by nature is generally inductive, and the conclusion reached by it are also inductive. So the conclusions of morality are not objectively true, and he should understand that.
A tier, we have arguments from personal experience. I know, I'm sure plenty of you take issue with that, but please hear me out until the end. Arguments from personal experience aren't usually presented in syllogisms, but if they were, they'd probably go something like this. My personal experiences are reliable sources of information. I personally experienced, insert God claim here, therefore the God claim is true. There are several issues with the first premise here. Personal experiences are not always reliable. One, personal experiences can contradict reality. There are hallucinations, manic states, meditative or trance states, psychoses, and more that can inform delusions. There's a wealth of scientific evidence that shows this to be true. Two, different people's personal experiences often contradict each other. Just ask all the Muslims, all the Christians, all the Hindus who have all had personal experiences in which a God confirms to them that following their specific religion is the only way. Three, and perhaps most important.
Okay, he has to be joking. He can't really be serious because personal experience aren't taken as serious argument by someone who is trying to prove God's existence. And nonetheless, personal experiences can be used to affirm an hypothesis. For example, if a million people have the same personal experience, such as they see something, it's very likely that there is a reason behind it, and the vision they saw or something they saw could be the reason or could be true. Figuring it out is not really a valid way to look at personal experiences. And then this guy goes ahead and says all religions have different personal experiences, hence all personal experiences are false. I think he's trying to convey that message. That is not necessarily true. And you need to make one thing clear, that Islam doesn't really use personal experiences. It actually goes against it in some ways, because we believe that personal experiences can be caused by Satan as well. So they are not really necessarily reliable all the times. We need to be able to confirm that in some way, shape, or form. But Christian, yes, they use the argument from personal experience a lot, like they saw Jesus in a dream, or they experienced something, something around those lines. But the main point being, for example, if three religions have contradicting personal experiences, it doesn't mean all three are false. One could be true, and there could be ways to confirm those personal experiences. And one thing that he forgot to make clear, or maybe he just didn't know, is that there are different types of personal experiences more than he just pointed out. Something like an spiritual awakening is also a personal experience, or coming from or moving from an uncertain position to a point of certainty of God is also a spiritual experience. And we do have that kind of concept in Islam, but we do not use it as a primary reason to prove God in Islam. But I believe that this atheist did not know that, so he shouldn't really be speaking about that. That's the main point here. And the way that these spiritual experiences can work is that you are once an agnostic atheist, then you can become agnostic theist by being sure about your position. Or spiritual experience can also be called as reaching a point of content and peacefulness by religiosity.
From fine-tuning. It goes like this. Cosmology shows us that there are several physical constants that govern the universe as we know it. If any one of those were tweaked even the smallest bit, the universe as we know it would not exist. The constants as they stand form a proverbial Goldilocks zone for our existence. It's highly improbable that this would occur by chance without a fine-tuning creator, so it's more probable that a creator does exist and is responsible for this fine-tuning. While this seems to make sense at first, deeper inspection reveals this argument's simple flaws. First, it makes use of a false dichotomy, presenting pure chance and an intelligent creator as the only two possibilities when it hasn't successfully ruled out other options. There could perhaps be some purely physical rule to the universe which demands that these constants be the way they are. Second, this is an argument from ignorance. Because the arguer doesn't know how such an unlikely thing could have possibly happened, they posit an unsubstantiated explanation.
Okay, that's a lie. I don't know if he's doing that on purpose or he's just not educated enough. Here's William Lane Craig explaining that there are three possibilities or more than two himself.
And tuning of the universe for intelligent life is due to either physical necessity, chance, or design.
Okay, so first he lies, then he shows that he doesn't really understand how the argument really works. First of all, the design arguments fall under teleological type arguments. Most of them are inductive in nature, some are abductive in nature. He could have kind of refuted the argument by saying, as it is not deductive, it does not necessarily prove objectively that there is a designer, and that this would be a valid point because inductive reasoning and inductive argument can lead to conclusions that are false. Theological argument basically do is show that under theism rather than naturalism, we would have design by using a confirmation theory. That's all there is to it. Well, not all there is to it, but most of the things. So I hope you stay skeptic about genetically modified skeptic because I doubt he actually knows any of this in depth. So that's it from me. Hope you guys enjoyed watching this. Ma salama.